Intuition is that sixth sense, is that thing, that bridge, that channel that connects us to the higher realm, with our higher self, with our soul. Most of all, I feel it connects us with our soul, and what our soul knows, that is our deepest desires, our calling, our purpose in this lifetime. And so I feel it's really, really important to understand what is intuition, and how important it is to create space to listen to it, to practice it, to I wouldn't say grow it, but the more you lean into it, the more you listen to it, the more able you are to hear it all the time. And hear it in the sense that is not only hearing words, but seeing signs, feeling that inner knowing, that most times we can't explain in words, but we just know. It's just that inner knowing. So, yeah, some tips that I have for you on how you can start to trusting your intuition and leaning into your intuition more every day. I have 7 tips. So the first one is to take any thoughts that pop into your head seriously. Like sometimes we are in the shower, especially. I don't know if you are like me, but every time I'm in the shower or having a bath, but normally in the shower for some reason, I have lots of thoughts coming into my head, but I'm in the shower. I can't take notes of them. I will wet the notebook. I can't take my phone with me. And sometimes, like, if I don't write them down straight after getting out of the shower, I forget. Take it seriously. Those thoughts that pop into your head whilst you're cooking, whilst you're in the shower, whilst you're driving, normally when we can't write things down, they normally pop up, but you can just like voice notes. So yeah, or try to remember, take it seriously. Don't ignore them, because it's your intuition talking to you. So take note of them as soon as you can. And then, if you can spare some time to reflect on them when you have the time, do it. Because sometimes it doesn't make sense why we are having those thoughts. But don't ignore them. Don't dismiss them. If you can make a note of them, do it. It's a good way to practice your intuition. The second tip is, when you are feeling overwhelmed about making a decision, especially if it's like a really important and complicated decision, try and write down your thoughts, your fears, and your whys. Why do you feel fear? Why do you feel that specific fear? Okay. Try to write it down and journal about it, at least for 15 minutes, I would recommend. And then go to sleep. Just write it down and then go to sleep. In the morning, read it to you. Read what you wrote the night before or during the day, but the day before, and then make a decision. If you have to make a decision that day, make sure you make a decision that is from a more grounded, reflective state of mind. Because sometimes all it takes is for us to write down what we were thinking and why we are thinking that way. And again, stripping those thoughts into fear, like peeling those layers and finding the core fear that's hidden there. Sometimes it's all it takes for then we're saying, come on, I have no reason to fear this. It's just my mind keeping me stuck in this overwhelm. I have no reason why. So when you make the decision, you're going to be in a more grounded place rather than coming from fear-based decisions. Tip number 3 is for you to try as much as you can to relax. There is nothing better for you to allow you to listen to your inner voice, to the voice of your intuition, louder and louder than making practices that silence you. And that it sounds like counteractive, but that is the truth. The more you become silenced, the louder you will hear your intuition. Because intuition is that quiet voice, is that quiet inner knowing. And if we are being too loud ourselves, we can't hear it, right? So doing practices that will allow you to silence your mind, especially because it can become very noisy in here. Those mind monkeys can make a lot of noise. So like taking a hot bath, doing a 10-minute meditation. It doesn't need to be like a huge 31-hour meditation. Just 10 minutes is enough. Walking in nature, making the excuse to walk your dog. But whilst you're walking your dog, try to pay attention more to your senses, to the things around you, so you are more present when you're walking in nature. Doing exercise, gardening, listening to music, being creative, painting, drawing, anything that really just allows you to relax and bring more silence into your life. That will help you to hear your intuition louder. Tip number 4, give yourself permission to daydream. And that's the thing that we as adults tend to forget. As children, we are full of wonder and imagination and magic, and we daydream and we create all of these fairy tales. But then I think when we get to teenagehood and the more adults we become, we lose that connection with our imagination, with wonder, and we forget to daydream. But daydreaming and the imagination and the wonder is what connects us with our intuition, with our soul essence, with who we are at the soul level. So give yourself permission to dream, to daydream, to be creative, to use all your senses, to use your imagination, and see what inspiration comes up. See what you channel, because it will be in those moments that will channel so many important messages for you, for your guidance. And I'm having chills right now because it is so true. So give yourself permission to daydream, to go back to that wonder, that child wonder that you lost contact with. Okay? Tip number 5, keep an eye out for symbols, for signs, for synchronicities that happen in your environment. If you don't know what it means, just Google it. Why do I keep seeing number 3s or 111? Or why do I keep seeing owls? Just Google it or buy a book that is all about symbology. But pay attention to it, keep an eye out for it, because there is hidden messages in there. As I always mention, and if you've been watching my lives, you've heard me say that, like, for me, I have this rule that when it shows up 3 times, it gets my attention. And that's when I start looking more. It's not like I'm looking for it, but I just pay more attention to it, and I go and I look for the meaning. So if you have any kind of rule as well for yourself, so you know, like, okay, 2 times or 3 times, that's a lot, that's weird, okay, let me look that up. Be curious, keep an eye out and be curious, because there's so many things, so many messages and guidance that we sometimes we dismiss because we are not paying attention, basically. Tip number 6, have the courage, and it takes courage, yeah, have the courage to be alone and make your own decisions. Sometimes it's easier to be surrounded by people and asking A, B, and C for their opinions when you're going through something that you need to make a decision or you're struggling with. And what that happens is your logic mind will get overwhelmed with all the different opinions and information, and that will just fuel more any fear that you have, any fear of, for instance, being ridiculed or for failing. Because as much as other people want to help you and are giving you advice in a more loving way, don't forget that we all have our own programming and our own conditioning. So what they are doing is they are giving you advice through their lenses, through the lenses of their own conditioning, or through the lenses of their own fears and triggers. And that most times that will not align with your soul, will not align with your soul's purpose, with your soul's calling, because we all have our own individual journeys, our own individual paths, our lessons to learn. That's why I say it takes courage to be alone and to make our own decisions. I'm not saying with this that you cannot ask for advice. Of course you can. But don't base your decisions on other people's advice, especially if it is advice that is not based in facts, right? That is based on experiences and, again, their own lenses of trauma and conditioning and programming. Your intuition is your own inner compass. He only wants what is best for you. He knows what your true desires are, or what your lessons are. It's connected with your soul. So that's the best place to go when you have to make a decision. So make space for listening to it and find the courage to act on it. But for that, you have to be alone. For that, you have to create the space to be alone and to listen and then act on it. And yes, you can take in consideration other people's advice, but only you know what's best for you. And sometimes it's going to go against what other people advise you to do in the first place. But as long as it feels right, as long as you feel that you're not scared, you might be scared. There's always, like, when we're stepping out of a comfort zone, we'll always feel uncomfortable. But we're not going to feel terrified, right? We're not going to feel like in such a deep fear. Yes, we feel scared, but not in a way that will stop us on our tracks. So follow those feelings. As long as it feels good to you, even though you feel a bit uncomfortable and a bit scared because it's something new, but as long as it feels that's the right thing for me to do, listen to it, even if it's against other people's advice. Okay? And then my last tip number 7, is like, in case of important decisions, create space for nothingness. Let your subconscious do its work. And this is a bit different from being alone, because whilst being alone, you are reflecting and you are listening to your intuition and you are processing things. But creating space for nothingness is really nothingness. It's just being silent and once in a while checking in with yourself and asking how you are feeling. Ask yourself, how do I feel? Where does this feeling come from? And just without logic, we're not trying to make sense. It's just being present and trying to understand what you are feeling in that moment. Creating space for nothingness is just being present. Not in the future, trying to plan, organize, being stuck in worry, or in the past, trying to remember past experiences and stories and trying to make sense of it. It's like really being in the present, just being in the present. There's nothing better than connecting you with your intuition.